While 21 states have minimum wages higher than the federal level of $7.25 an hour, Oklahoma is not one of them. This week, the Oklahoma House of Representatives voted in favor of a bill prohibiting municipalities from establishing a mandatory minimum wage or number of vacation or sick days. Opponents of the bill argued state government should not legislate decisions that should be left up to individual communities, while supporters said the legislation protects businesses and consumers by prohibiting higher minimum wages that could drive up inflation. Here is some of that debate in this ONR Extra.
It's okay, apparently, if I tell your citizens how to run their communities, but it's bad if the federal government does. Well, folks, local control means something. It means something when the federal government tells the states to do something, and it means the exact same thing when the states tell your cities and towns to do something. So for those of you to stand up on this floor and pontificate, as you have for year after year, that you want the federal government to quit telling us how to run our lives here and turn around and support legislation that will tell your cities and towns how to run their lives, there's only one word that comes to mind to even come close to explaining it: hypocrisy.
This is not a mandate. This keeps a mandate from being placed on those small businesses in your districts. I think we've missed that point in this discussion today. This keeps a mandate from being placed on your small businesses, and particularly those that have multiple locations, maybe in multiple communities. A significant disadvantage if they had to deal with that. The legislation is set up where it will follow whatever the federal minimum wage is. If the federal wage goes up, the wage in Oklahoma goes up. It just clarifies that we won't have one wage in one community, another wage in another community.
It's great that people have a job, but the issue that we face is Oklahomans have a job that does not provide them an adequate paycheck to earn a living wage to climb out of poverty. And we're going to act as big brother in this chamber, pass a bill out that says these municipalities cannot govern their citizens in a way that they see fit and provide that living wage.
Economics 101 tells us that raising the minimum wage does not address the biggest problem in our country. And everybody in the body knows this. It's joblessness. Markets should always determine wages. States create their own policies, local governments create their own policies, but I always am surprised. It never fails. It's always easier to be compassionate with other people's money.
No one in the wealthiest country in the world should be condemned to living in poverty if they're working a full-time job. It's a disgrace as citizens of the most wealthy country of the world, the United States of America, that we allow hundreds of thousands of our brothers and sisters who work full-time to live in poverty. I'm very ashamed to be a member of a House that continually pushes legislation off the floor of this chamber and the one across the rotunda that benefits the top 1% of the most wealthy in this country. But at the same time, we deny the opportunity for those who are struggling and working a full-time job to escape poverty.
The problem here, I guess, is what we think of as charity. I agree, and as I read this book, it talks about taking care of the widow and the orphan and the poor, about clothing those who don't have clothes, about feeding those who don't have food. But you know what? As I read it, and it talks about charity, that's what I'm supposed to do, is take care of the widow and the orphan and feed those that don't have food, visit those who are in prison and who are sick. You know, it's funny, I tried to keep up with all those verses. Nowhere did it say I'm supposed to do that with somebody else's money.